Hello everyone and welcome to the second episode of a mini-series about the surface level operations of 3 specific attractions in Disneyland's Tomorrowland, those being Autopia, Monorail, and Star Tours. Last time we covered Star Tours, so in this video I will be going over Autopia and just some of the basic knowledge that repeat visitors may notice on how they do things and going into a little bit of detail on what they do as well as why they do it. Please know I will only be covering the 3 attractions mentioned in this video, and for this video specifically, the Disneyland version of Autopia. This video will also have timestamps, so if anyone wants to skip to something specific, feel free to use them. Now before we get started, I would like to make a legal disclaimer for this video series. This video is intended solely for entertainment purposes, as information may not be completely accurate as rules and regulations change every day at the park. Its purpose is to provide insight into surface level operations of these attractions for those seeking information. It is important to clarify that this content is not endorsed nor officially recognized by the Walt Disney Company. It is imperative to emphasize that the creation of this video series is a personal endeavor and conducted outside any professional responsibilities within the company. There exists no formal association between this video series and the Walt Disney Company. Furthermore, it is crucial to acknowledge that the information presented in this video represents my own perspectives and comprehension of the attractions based on my own experience and observations. It is independent of any official stance held by the company. This includes any potential future alterations that may occur after the release of this video. Your understanding and consideration in this matter is greatly appreciated. Thank you and enjoy the video. What is Autopia? Well, it's a race car type attraction where drivers and passengers ride along the highway of Tomorrowland in their own vehicle that they can control. That's right, you heard it correctly. These cars are driven by the guests themselves, but I will go into more detail on the cars later. Another fun fact is Autopia is a portmanteau of words, or blended words mixing automobile with utopia. It is pronounced Autopia and not Autotopia or a utopia or anything like that. Also, the name is plastered all over the attraction and the licenses themselves. So like, how do you spell it wrong? I'm looking at you, Instagram. Autopia was originally an opening day attraction and opened with Disneyland Park on July 17, 1955. It has gone many iterations during its almost 70-year lifespan and will probably have more changes to come. Of course, that is just speculation. For this video, I will be covering the current version under the sponsorship of Honda. This version reopened in spring of 2016 and has its own little story on the attraction. The story is that you're watching Robot and Bird throughout the attraction. Robot teaches Bird how to fly throughout the entire attraction, so check out the theming around the highway. It's neat for those paying attention, I guess. If you or your children want to putt-putt along the highway of tomorrow, well, you come to the right place. Where is Autopia? Well, Autopia is located at the far end of Tomorrowland. It's tucked away between the Disneyland Monorail, which will be the next episode, as well as between the Disneyland Railroad and the Star Wars Launch Bay, aka the old Innovations building or whatever you would like to call it. It's sort of tucked away, so not many people know where the attraction is located, but hopefully this video will help some of you discover this attraction. It's just across from the Galactic Grill's ordering/eating area. Once you see those big palm trees, just go towards the Disneyland Railroad and it'll be right next to it. Please be careful, as a ton of people will accidentally go up the Monorail's entrance or Autopia's exit thinking it is for the line, but it's underneath that big old sign with the red letters. It's really hard to miss, actually. A side note, a ton of people will accidentally go up Autopia's exit thinking it's the line for the monorail, but I will cover that in the next episode. Now let's talk about the outside of the attraction and some general rules for it. Autopia just has one entrance for both standby and lightning lane. It will then split off at a certain point in the queue, but I will cover that in a moment. Please keep in mind, I will not be talking about how to use lightning lane in this video. Anyway, you must be 32 inches or 81 centimeters to go on this attraction, and 54 inches or 137 centimeters to go alone. The height requirements are set by the state's Department of Industrial Relations and are not set by the company. They cannot budge on this topic if your child is too small. It is for the safety of the riders. They can offer rider switches so the person who waits with the little one can ride after their party does. It is imperative to know that babies cannot come into the attraction at all, as well as children under the height limit. This is so they don't accidentally get into the attraction's ride itself. It is unsafe for them to ride, especially how the ride's nature is. Do not argue with the cast members because you cannot bring your babies on this ride. A side note, if your child is tall enough, they must sit on their own. There is no lap sitting at this attraction. Even if they are not tall enough to see over the dashboard, it is for their safety, as bumping may occur on this attraction. Again, I will talk about that later. Lastly, while your child may meet the height requirement, per Disney's child supervision policy, children under the age of 7 must be accompanied by someone by the age of 14 or older to experience the attractions. Any child 7 or older can ride alone. They are not responsible for your children, they cannot take responsibility for them, and they must be left with another parent or guardian if they are not tall enough to ride. Please note, this also includes having children with the adults in the same vehicle. The attraction has 2 height limits, one for general riders and one for those looking to drive their own car. Keep in mind, while you must be 54 inches or 137 centimeters to drive alone, you are still able to drive the car if someone who meets the secondary height requirement is at least with you. That way, the taller person can push down the pedal for you. Yes, children can drive their own vehicles, and you can push the pedal down for them. It's Disneyland after all. Now back to the lightning lane situation. I highly recommend making sure you have the correct reservation time and attraction before entering the queue. If you do not have it, you'll be asked to head back down or enter the regular standby line. This also goes for party utilizing the DOS pass system. They will go through the lightning lane side as well. Lastly, the queue is ADA compliant, so anyone utilizing a wheelchair, electric scooter, or a stroller with a tag indicating that it is used as a wheelchair can come into the line. They will get assistance once they hit a certain part of the queue. Keep in mind, regular strollers are not permitted in the attraction, so please park them in the stroller parking area. This would be next to Autopia's Winter Circle or the Nemo's stroller parking area. Before we move on to the queue, let's talk about wait times. But before we do so, a cast member may hand you a red card to hold while you wait in line. This just measures the wait time, and you will hand it to a cast member that gives you a number at the bottom of the stairs on the loading platforms. Wait times. Wait times at this attraction fluctuate throughout the day. On average, this will hover around the 30 to 50 minute mark on a busier day and a 5 to 15 minute wait on a slower day. Please take this with a grain of salt because this attraction can have its wait time change very suddenly due to many different factors. These factors included but not limited to neighboring attractions breaking down, sudden bursts of lightning lane guests, or traffic being held for removing a vehicle, which again I will touch on later. Basically, the wait times are just estimates and can be either shorter or longer than the posted wait time, especially if you notice the length of the queue and or an influx of guests coming in with you. This goes without saying, but Lightning Lane gets priority over standby at this and every other attraction with Lightning Lane. I can't tell you the exact numbers they use, but just know that the more in the Lightning Lane side, the more they'll pull from that side, as well as the less in the Lightning Lane side, the less they'll pull from it. If there was no one in the Lightning Lane, then standby only and nothing to worry about, of course. This attraction also has its Lightning Lane scanners inside the queue, so backups may occur that will cause the line to shoot past the cast member up in front. This is why I also say to make sure you have your tickets ready and make sure you have the correct reservations. It's also worth noting that Lightning Lane does not guarantee immediate boarding, and while I would normally say that Lightning Lane cuts the standby wait time in half, this could be either true or false depending on the nature of this attraction specifically. The wait times are also factored by how many tracks are running, as well as how many cars are on each track, to even how fast drivers are going around the track. You remember how I said drivers can drive their own car? Well, that will factor into the wait time because some drivers will take double the amount of time to go around the track. There are some reasons behind this, but I will touch on them later. Also, Autopia may not be utilizing all 4 tracks, and tracks may open and or close based off demand. As you can see from my footage, they're opening up the second track or the blue track on this platform. Pretty neat, huh? Also, please keep in mind show/parade times and general guest patterns. From my observations, wait times will most likely be a walk-on during park opening, during parade/fireworks, and closer to park closing. This obviously can change depending on availability of nearby attractions, as well as what day you go on. Obviously, it's going to be busy on a holiday, especially during big holiday seasons. Also, depending on the fireworks/projection show, the line may go down but still won't be a walk-on. I've noticed longer waits during the Mickey's Mixed Magic show as opposed to the Halloween or holiday nighttime show. Another note for Lightning Lane, if the line is 5 minutes and you pretty much see people walking on, it is pointless to use it at this attraction, as you can see from my footage. Lastly, they do not offer a single rider line at this attraction at the time of riding this. Let's move on to the queue. The queue. As you walk into the queue, you pretty much get to see the loading and unloading area of the attraction. Take a good look because that's what you're going to be doing as well. You may have also saw a big old red lollipop looking sign at the entrance. That indicates the Lightning Lane party should stay to the left hand side. This is because once you get up into the queue, you're greeted with a split in the line. This split is Lightning Lane on the left and standby on the right. If you have Lightning Lane, this is where you would scan. If you don't, you just keep moving on to the right. Another note, this area will be heavily congested due to guests not knowing what Lightning Lane is to not having the right experience or no experience booked at all. This is why I say to please have it ready before entering the queue so these buildups don't happen. Also, it's for obvious safety reasons. Now, let's start with the standby side. Depending on demand of the attraction, you'll be directed into the switchbacks of the queue. They will open and close tiers as needed. Once you make it past that, or if it wasn't open, you'll cruise into the big old tower looking area. It has some neat animations of robot and bird in the dark hallway area. I mean, not super entertaining, but something to look at least. You'll then pop out and be greeted by a cast member who merges the Lightning Lane side with the standby side, all together in one line. Speaking of Lightning Lane, the Lightning Lane side will scan their tickets/magic bands and just walk all the way down to this cast member who merges the two lines. Both lines will be directed into one line that directs everyone back towards the actual loading platform. This merging point is also where those utilizing wheelchairs and electric scooters will be helped out. They will split off from the line to be asked a few questions, but we'll get to them in a moment. Heading back into the merged lines, you will walk back down the pathway towards the old Rocket Rods pillar and be greeted by yet another split in the lines. Now this is important as they can run up to 4 tracks on this attraction. Tracks 1 and 2, the red and blue side, and tracks 3 and 4, the orange and green side. All tracks may not be running depending on what time of the day you visit. While tracks 3 and 4 may look shorter, it may be a ruse or a trick. Yes, tracks 1 and 2 may have a longer looking line, but that side is always running more vehicles and gets neglected as guests will always move to the shorter looking line, which happens to be the 3-4 side. The 3-4 side may also be running one track depending on the time of day you visit. If this is the case, you will most likely be waiting twice as long as opposed to the 1-2 side. Just a side note, at the time of recording this, the 3-4 side was running way less cars than the 1-2 side, so that side would always have a longer wait, depending on how many tracks they're running, of course. Anyway, I would highly recommend moving around the 3-4 side if it's not moving, and over to the 1-2 side to keep the lines moving, and not make the job of the Lightning Lane cast member harder, as they're already dealing with so many questions for Lightning Lane. Of course, you can disregard this information if they're only running the 1-2 side when you visit. It all depends on how busy the attraction is at that time. There may be little to no lines, so you might not even touch the queue, to be honest. Now that you picked your side, you head on down the stairs and get ready to ride. That is, after they give you a number and such, but I will get into that right after I talk about what happens to our friends utilizing the wheelchairs. Once separated from the merge point, a cast member will ask you a few questions. If you are okay with leaving your wheelchair and do not need the elevator, it may send you down the exit side of the 3-4 platform. If you do need your wheelchair and or need the elevator or lift, they will send you down the 1-2 side. For those using the elevator/lift, you'll be directed over to it. The rest of the party will head down the exit side of the 1-2 platform, while the person using the wheelchair and one extra to help them out will head down using the lift and meet up with the rest of their party. Please do not use it on your own. Someone will assist you with using it for safety reasons. Once down on the platform, a cast member should have told you where to wait. For example, you may have been told to wait on blue number 7 or next to the light pole. Please note, if you were assisted by a cast member using the lift and told to wait on a number like blue 7 or orange 8, that is not your assigned number. The cast member grouping people onto numbers will then come down and put you onto new numbers. Now, let's move on to the loading and unloading platform. The loading zone. Congratulations, you finally made it to the loading area, or the loading zone, or whatever you want to call it. This is the part where you tell how many cars your party is going to be driving. You can fit up to 3 people in a car, but keep in mind, this usually means 1 adult and 2 children, or 2 adults and 1 child. The cars are on the smaller side, so I would personally recommend 2 per car at most. I will get into details about the cars in just a moment. For example, if you have 6 in a party, you can do 3 cars, or everyone drive their own car for a total of 6. This is only if everyone meets the height requirements, of course. The grouping cast member will then give you a number to stand on. You then head to that number and you wait your turn. Please note the numbers are on the railing and on the ground, so please look out for your number. They're also in a white box and the color that they should have told you. For example, they will tell you to go to blue number 4, 5, and 6. Your party will then work your way down the platform and stand on those numbers inside the white box and wait until your car pulls up. Please wait inside the white box until the other drivers have stepped out, then you can step in once the car is clear. Do not stand in the opening for both safety and courtesy reasons. Please keep an eye on the little ones as you don't want them accidentally getting onto the track where the cars are moving. Autopia usually utilizes 6 cars every dispatch. They can go up to 8 at a time, but usually that's for busier days. I've also seen it where they do not have the 3-4 side open yet because it's not busy enough to open up an entire new track. Speaking of 6 cars, all numbers must be utilized at this attraction and there cannot be empty numbers. You remember how I said they were cars? Well, those cars need to be driven by someone obviously, and without people driving them, they won't go anywhere. Please try not to change your mind last minute, or at bare minimum, at least tell the grouping cast member that you want to go together or separately, so they can make adjustments. For example, you and your friend are going separately, and you were placed on the 4 and 5. You both decide to go together last minute and hop into 5. Well, now number 4 is empty, and that car isn't going to go anywhere unless it's filled. We'll hop into number 4 and problem solved, right? Well, yes, it is solved for you, but the person behind you can't go anywhere now because number 5 is empty, and they send out 6 cars at a time. If you do this, you're being extremely rude to the guests behind you now. Now, you may say, well, isn't this the cast member's job? They should get over it and fill it for me anyway. Well, yes and no. Yes, it is their job, but at the same time, you told them you were both going separately. Now they must find someone to fill that car or move the person behind you up into the number 5 spot and fill number 6. It's easier said than done because you caused a chain reaction that is now causing a delay on that track, which in turn affects the wait time and the people trying to get off. Yes, it is the cast member's job to fix it, but you're being rude to your fellow guests, and to be honest, it's not cool. I apologize for using that sort of example, but it's just something I see way too frequently, and it'd just be easier if you told someone before causing all that to happen. Anyway, you may ask, what happens if they have 4 numbers filled up and they only run 6 cars at a time, but our party is using 3 cars? Well, they do something that's called the wraparound or doubling up. In the event this scenario happens, the 2 in your party will go to numbers 5 and 6, and the other person will double up on a number 1 with someone else. Now, number 1 through 6 will go, and the person at your party that was double up on number 1 will be first in line right behind you on the next set of cars. The ride path is just one big circuit, and eventually it'll come back around. You may ask, why not just put them at 5, 6, and 7 since 7 and 8 aren't being utilized? Well, that's something they could do, but also it's more efficient to do the wraparound or double up method. Plus, at the end of the day, they're just doing their job, and you just listen to them because they're trying to do their job, and you're not. Also, if the wraparound does happen to you and you get doubled up with someone else at a number 1, don't worry. The person that was there first will go in first, and then you'll hop in once the next set of cars drives up. Well, can we race each other then? Both sides are running. Well, yes and no. While both tracks are running simultaneously, they may be dispatching at separate times. You and your buddy could be both number 1 red and number 1 blue, but the blue track is already coming in and there was a small delay on the red track, so now you and your buddy are separated. So try not to ask unless, of course, you're okay with being separated and not actually race. Another question is, what if your party is really big and needs more than 6 cars? Well, probably gonna need like 13 or 14 cars. Well, first of all, that must be stressful traveling with that many people in the park. Secondly, this is a scenario where you may get split up with half your party going on one side and the other half going on the other side. The sides being the 1 and 2 or 3 and 4 side. You won't get split up on opposite platform as your party hopefully stuck together when going down the stairs to get a number. You most likely will just be split up with 6 on track 1 and the remaining 7 or 8 on track 2, with 1 or 2 being doubled up with the wraparound method on 1 and 2 blue. Just as an example. Also, if you are traveling with a big party that will need more than 6 cars, I would highly recommend paying attention as the 3-4 side may be only running 1 track, so your party may be waiting longer on that side if you were not to move over to the 1-2 side. As you can see, this is getting way more complicated than it needs to be just because of how complex this attraction can be at times. I promise, the cast members at the attraction will make this all easy for you when you go, and they won't get into the much detail about what to do and where to do it, and X, Y, and Z and blah 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 blah. You get the idea. They're professionals, and I'm just pointing out how much complexity can go into something that seems like a simple task. One last thing before we do anything, for my friends using wheelchairs and cannot physically get out of the wheelchairs, there's an option upon request. You can utilize the transfer seat. It's a big blue bench that attaches to the side of the car and lets them slide into the car. Keep in mind that the cast members cannot lift anyone for safety and legal reasons. There's also an option for those who can't physically push down the pedal on their own, but please keep in mind, these options are for those who only need it and not for those looking to make a dumb TikTok video. Please only use it if you need it. Well, now that you have your number and the person just got out of the car, it's time to hop in and drive, so buckle up and get ready to go fast. Just kidding. We gotta talk about the cars before we talk about the path the cars go on. The cars. This is the part of the video where I'm going to be very clear. This is the part of the video where I hope you all understand. This is the most important part of the video. Well, what is it? The cars, of course. What's so special about the cars? They're just little go-karts pretty much, right? Yeah, exactly the case. So why do people keep asking if they can drive themselves? I get the confusion because the cars are on a rail, but they're real cars. These real cars need real drivers, and real cars don't go unless someone drives them. It's the same concept, but the cars are just smaller. So yes, you must drive the cars for them to move. Also, yes, I know there are self-driving cars that exist in the real world, but this little car ride is meant for children. This could be a child's first time driving their own car, and for their parents to ride along and enjoy the experience with the children. So them being self-driven would just take all the fun out for them, and at that point, you might as well just go on test track at Epcot or Radiator Springs Racers over at California Adventure. I hope I made it clear that these cars must be driven by someone for them to go. No driver equals no movement. Now let's talk about the fun part of the car, the pedal. The pedal is a pain in the rear end to push down. It requires a ton of pressure to push down to get the vehicle moving. And this is just one of the reasons why anyone under the 54-inch mark cannot go by themselves. It's hard for smaller drivers to push down the pedal, so it's highly recommended that the parent or guardian should push down the pedal for them. Teamwork makes the dream work or something like that. Little Jimmy's got the wheels and Big Tony's got the pedal. That's just an example, but you get the picture. Another note is that if you're under the secondary height requirement, you probably can't reach the pedal either. Lastly, even though the 54 inches is the bare minimum to go alone, I would still highly recommend being a smidge taller, like 56 inches or 142 centimeters, just because drivers that actually meet the threshold may have a hard time going all the way around the circuit because that pedal is really hard to push down for little ones. Now onto the steering wheel. Yes, it's a steering wheel, and yes, it works like a real one. Your vehicle is on a rail and you just steer along the path. If you don't steer, your vehicle will just bounce off the guide rail and it'll be an uncomfortable ride the entire time. I mean, like, not as bad as Matterhorn, but still. Unless, of course, you're into that sort of thing, but more power to you. Another side note, if you don't want to steer and just have a smooth ride, if you turn the wheel all the way to the left or right, depending on which way the step arrow is pointing, the guide wheels on the bottom of the car will guide along the guide rail, and it'll pretty much make the car drive itself. You still have to push the pedal down though. It just makes it so you don't have to steer. You still have to hold the wheel in place though. The cars also have big bumpers on the front and back. These are just in case you happen to bump into the vehicle in front of you. I want to emphasize that these cars are just plain old cars and not bumper cars. The bumpers are there for safety reasons and not meant to be used as a toy or to bump your buddy in front because you thought it'd be funny. This causes damage to the cars and may cause it to go out of commission for the day. I will go into more detail about that later. Anyway, the seat belt is for the vehicle and just one big belt for everyone in the car. Everyone shares the same belt, so buckle up. But first, there are 3 types of cars. They have the Dusty, the Sparky, and the Susie. Don't worry, while they are different bodies, they're all same under the hood. All the cars are pretty much the same speed. The only difference is their bodies and the colors the cars are. Another fun thing is they all also have their own license plate on the back. Some fun Easter eggs as well as certain nods to certain theme parks attractions. Check them out next time you're there. Also, asking for a specific car color may be a hard request as cars are on the track randomly with their opening procedures. They may not know what color would come next. And thus, of course, you just happen to come on the day where the color you want just happens to all be on the same track. Just a weird coincidence, am I right? Now, one last thing before we talk about the attraction itself. The cars are different in one small way. The cars on the track 1 and track 3 side have their steering wheels on the opposite side, for Americans at least. This is because they are quote-unquote British cars. The cars on the track 2 and track 4 side have their steering wheel on the normal side, again for Americans at least. So that's just something to keep in mind, but honestly, it doesn't really make much of a difference when driving. Let's finally get onto the attraction's ride route itself. The highway of tomorrow's route. Well, it's finally your turn to hop in and go. Well, hold on there, Speed Racer. Listen to what the cast member has to say to you. They gotta make sure you're buckled up and it doesn't come loose. Then they tell you 2 important things that are meant for your safety: to not bump the vehicle in front of you and to stay in your vehicle at all times. While it's on the vehicle themselves, some guests still abuse the system and now everyone must be told. After you're told that, they say you're good to go and you put the pedal to the metal. I mean it, that pedal really needs to be held down the entire time to go. If you take it off just a little bit, it'll slow down or even stop. This is also how you stop your vehicle, it's just something I forgot to mention earlier. If you are wondering, the ride's average time is about 5 minutes give or take. This is based off a few factors that I'll get into later. All tracks leave and return to the same station. They will split off as they inch away from the railroad station. The 1-2 side and the 3-4 side will always be together during the entire duration of the track. So if your buddy's on track 4 and you're on track 1, you won't see each other until you return back to the station. This also means you two separated at the split off in the queue and went down separate platforms. So whoops on your part, I guess. Let's start off with the 1-2 side first. You exit the station on your race around Tomorrowland's highway. You first see a big old balloon with Robot and Bird. This is part of the story showing that Robot is the driver and Bird wants to fly. You then enter the attraction passing underneath the monorail beam and go through some trees along the railroad. You then enter a campground looking area where Robot has set up and you see Bird crash their plane. Oh no. Anyway, moving on, you race away from that plane wreck and you drive underneath the monorail track once again, and it's very low to the ground. Oh my. You then make a big old turn across a bridge and do another big old turn. Then do a big old drop, at least for this attraction size, down into the off-road section. You then see Bird attached to a kite, and he's still up to his crazy shenanigans. That goofster. You then go off-road and around another bridge and duck because that monorail beam's low again. You then make another big old turn and go down some zigzaggy hill as you make your way down and back around into the station. You then see Bird and Robot found a plane. Now let's talk about the 3-4 side now. It's pretty much the same thing. You exit out of the station and see the balloon with Robot and Bird. You then take a different route as you drive over some bridges. You might even see some cars passing you. You do some little S-bends and then make your way down to the off-road area where you see Bird attached to some weird device. Who cares? Off-road time, baby! Yeah, that's right. This side does their off-road side first. You then make your way up the bridge and go under a bridge that some car is driving on. Then you make your way into that campground area and do a big old turn around it. You then go over that bridge you just went under and make your way down a zigzaggy hill as you make your way down to the station. Also, there's a tunnel now. How neat. As you approach the loading area, you're greeted with a cast member directing in traffic. They'll direct you in as soon as it's safe to do so, as the cars are starting to take off from the station. Please don't get out here or heckle the cast members that are here. They're waiting for other people to unload and load so you can do the same thing. Once given the go-ahead from them, they'll send in the number of cars they need, which is normally 6, but could be different depending on the situation. You then cruise into the station, and a cast member will give you a number to park at. This may or may not be the original number you started at, so please pay attention. Once that happens, you park and then you hop on out. Just an important note, make sure you hop out the same way you hopped in. If you hop out on the opposite side or towards the steering wheel side, you'll be on the track with the cast member, and you don't work here, so don't do that. Also on the dashboard, there's a little sign that tells you exactly where to step out in case you happen to forget. Now you exit the attraction. Simple, right? Well, before we talk about exiting the attraction, let's talk about delays. These are not downtimes, but small delays that can happen on the attraction. Remember, they're cars, and sometimes cars do what cars do best. Delays on the highway. Remember how I said these are cars, and if you've ever driven a car, especially on a highway, sometimes highway stuff happens. These delays are from something like a slow driver to other stuff that happens with cars. Slow drivers can cause a delay on the attraction, and usually a cast member that wanders the attraction can help them out as if they need it. Usually, it's just a child that barely made the height requirement and needs some help pushing on the pedal since it's too hard for their 5-minute journey around the track. Or it's just an older driver that doesn't have the strength to do it for that long. Besides slow drivers, obviously, things go wrong at attractions/rides at any theme park, and that's just how machines are sometimes. Running all day, and they may break down or need to stop running for a bit. Well, the cars are the same way, and they may break down and whatnot on the attraction. It happens, and it's normal on this attraction. Here's something that you can do if your car happens to turn itself off while driving. Firstly, try to push down the pedal. Sometimes the cars turn themselves off, and it's just a simple tap of the pedal will restart it and get you going again. If this doesn't work, pushing the pedal down 2 or 3 times can restart the engine to get your vehicle moving again. The last thing you do is try pumping the pedal a few times really hard and really fast. Usually 3 times will do it. Majority of the time, this will restart your vehicle and you'll be on your way no problem. Now, if this doesn't work and you tried all those things, you will now need to just sit there and wait for a cast member to assist you. Depending on where you're at, someone will notice a trail of cars not moving and make their way to you. Or other drivers may have let a cast member know that someone's stuck back there, and for one of the cast members to go investigate. Another factor of delays is people getting out of their vehicles. As sad as it sounds, there are people that do not care about safety regulations and will get out of the vehicle. Please do not do this, as it's very dangerous, as well as trespassing on private property. Yes, you technically paid to be at the park, but stepping onto areas you do not belong is considered trespassing, no matter the reason. Do not leave your vehicle unless instructed by a cast member to do so. This is very reckless behavior and can result in a removal from the park. This goes for any attraction and not just Autopia. Even if your child is in front of you and they are struggling, do not abandon your car to help them, because then your car will be sitting there causing a backup of drivers stuck behind your abandoned vehicle. This will also lead to the cast members having to stop the attraction to search for a missing person. The cast members are there to help and do not want anyone putting themselves in danger. This is also a big safety thing, because you walking around the attraction means you can get hit by another driver. While the cars are tiny, they are not light. They are heavy little vehicles and can hurt you if you get hit. You wouldn't walk around on the highway, would you? So why do it at Disneyland? As mentioned before, the cars may die out and no longer be able to run for whatever reason. A cast member will come out and assist you by moving you into a different vehicle if your car no longer runs, or tow you back into the station by having another vehicle push you in. You remember how I talked about no bumping earlier? Well, this can also cause a delay because bumping can cause issues to the engines, which can shut off the car that you had been bumping, now stranding both of you. Another issue is if you bump super hard, you can cause your bumpers to lock up with each other, which now causes delay on your track because you and your buddy want to be funny. This also goes with pushing stationary cars. This can cause the engine to burn out and cause a very unpleasant odor, and then the car needs to be removed. Trust me, the smell is terrible and you do not want to smell it. Remember, being a jerk isn't cool, and everyone's just trying to have a good day at the park. Don't ruin it by not following safety rules. It's also worth noting that please do not do this maliciously. If you're going to go out of your way to break attractions, you're just a terrible person for ruining other people's fun, as well as making the jobs of the cast members much harder. Malicious behavior can result in removal from the park, and it's not worth it as destruction of private property is a crime, and can face legal actions from the company, as well as local law enforcement. This is obviously a slippery slope argument, but please don't be a jerk. Thanks. Sometimes the cars may have a flat tire, or just come off the track, or just other normal car issues. This would also cause a delay, and could also cause a downtime for the entire attraction, depending on the severity of the derail. Lastly, sometimes you can see the delay in the station as these cars are on a rail and they gotta come off somehow, right? Well, right you are, as sometimes cars are removed from the tracks themselves for maintenance or custodial reasons. They will then hold their traffic and lower the track switches to pull off the vehicle in question and put it onto their storage area or maintenance area. This can be a quick removal to taking a while depending on the severity of the maintenance issue with the vehicle. This also goes for adding on a car as well. They will hold traffic right before their other track switches and add a car on from the storage area. There is a handful of extra cars, subject to availability of course, for this sort of situation. That way they can always run as much cars as they need to for each track. It's also worth noting that each track usually has somewhere between 18 and 24 cars on their track at a time, but sometimes tracks may have less depending on car availability for that given day. This is also why they send in pairs of 6 because of the number of cars on each track. Now you also heard me mention earlier about downtimes in regards to cars that make it off their guide rail. Well, let's talk about actual downtimes, shall we? Downtimes. Well, downtimes happen in every attraction once in a while. Now you may think, how does an attraction that's ran by people go down? Sounds like it shouldn't happen if you can replace cars so easily, and if everything is running so smoothly. Well, yes. Autopia doesn't really have that much downtimes, but when it does, just know it could be for one of the delays mentioned earlier. This is especially important why not to get out of your vehicle. If you get out of your vehicle and they cannot find you, the attraction has to close. Not only do you shut down Autopia, you could shut down the neighboring attractions as well, like the railroad and the monorail, until they can find you. Please do not be that guy. Autopia is also an outdoor attraction and subject to the elements. While Autopia no longer shuts down during the rain, as of making this video, please keep in mind that depending on the severity of the rain, the attraction may shut down for heavy rain that causes puddles, which could cause hydroplaning, of which the cars can cause a derail. It's also worth noting that Autopia and other outdoor attractions cannot operate during a lightning storm. If there is lightning in the area, it is dangerous for people to be in metal moving objects, of course. Earthquakes will also cause the attraction to close until they can deem the attraction safe to operate. Same as I mentioned in the Star Tours video, of course. It's also worth noting while Autopia doesn't really need power to run, if there is a power outage and it affects safety equipment, they will shut down for that as well. Autopia is one of those attractions that doesn't really have downtimes that often, but when it does, it's occasional delay for car issues. Exiting the attraction. Well, you've rode the car ride and now it's time for you to leave. Hop out of your car and head up the stairs to the exit. Those that need the elevator/lift, contact a nearby cast member for assistance to come back up. As you exit, you will see some license booth. These are optional and you do not have to get one, but it's a neat souvenir for those interested. At the time of recording this, I believe it costs $8 US. If the machine doesn't print your license card, try checking the dispenser slot to make sure it didn't get stuck. If it's not there, there's a phone number on the machine that you can call to issue a refund. But please keep in mind, these license booths are not operated by Disney and handled by a third party. Then you head out and go experience the rest of the park. I don't really know what else to say. There's not a gift shop at the exit, so you don't have to worry about that, I guess. Final thoughts. Autopia is a great ride for those looking to drive around in some mini cars. It's especially great for children looking to drive since they can't drive a real car yet. I hope you let your children drive, because that's the whole point of this ride. You probably drove them to the park, so why not let them drive on this little car ride? Anyway, now that you know some of the surface level operations, hopefully you can understand how cast members keep this attraction going throughout the day, and you can understand how exactly they do things here. Thank you for watching this video. I have one more attraction I will be covering. The next episode will be the last episode, and it will be covering the Disneyland monorail. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to share it around to friends and family. Also, if you want to support the channel, please check out some of my other content. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next episode.